Going to go on and bring on Dr. Ann Brown. Peace and greetings to you, Dr. Brown.
Hello.
Greetings. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I am wonderful. It is an honor to have you to come on and share. As I was telling you when we had an opportunity to speak, I've actually kind of been searching for a contact for you for over 3 years, particularly when I started to get into my studies about melanin and those works. I'm not even really 100% sure how I came about your name. I know it was a slew of yourself and others, as well as Dr. Richard King and others that had done things with melanin, particularly at that. I know you are the contributing author of Why Darkness Matters, the Keys to Melanin in the Brain. That's one of the projects, as well as many others that you have worked on. So it's good to have you here in the house tonight. And I know this is your first time for being on the remix. What I would love for you to do is just sort of kind of let everybody know who you are, a little bit about your background, and we can begin to start the share from there.
Okay. My name is Ann Brown. I'm a professor at a community college called Medgar Evers, and I did my undergraduate. One of them was in microbiology at the University of New Hampshire, and then I did a microbiology, that's a master's in micro. Then I worked at Pfizer, and then I went to the Westchester Medical Center, to the medical school there, and I did a master's in anatomy, and then finally a PhD in medical anatomy. So I'm an anatomist.
Yes, anatomist. Love it, love it.
Beautiful
and powerful as well. I want to start out by talking because there's so much that we get when it comes to information, but I know yourself, this is a particular love for you when it comes to not only us as people, but really just understanding that anatomy and the effects of melanin. So can you let everybody know from your research what you know to be true yourself, your studies, and all of your spiritual work? What is melanin?
Yes. There's some controversy as to what it really is, but from my work and knowledge and training, it is the black material that's located in the brain. If you read Frank Barr's medical hypothesis, there was a whole journal on melanin. He doesn't speak out. He writes, and he leaves it at that. But he said that melanin is an organizing molecule. That is, it is at the center of every function in the body. And I add to that by saying that it is a pigment located in the body, and it attracts a certain vibrational energy, and so it organizes every single function in the body. It is dependent on this black material that we call melanin.
That we actually call melanin.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to us understanding melanin, is there a difference between us of African descent and having melanin and others?
Well, you know, they break it down. The New York Academy of Sciences breaks it down into 4 classes. The one, when you see the term EU melanin, the EU prefix means good, well, efficient. That means that it is the black to brown material, amorphous, and is found in all throughout life, throughout the earth. And that means that it is a molecule that vibrates at a certain frequency and also vibrate those things, that material around it. So this is like the good melanin. You know, it takes all the light rays in and it utilizes them, changes it into a consciousness level, and it makes the body work. That's the first type. So that's the brown to black, and that one is found in the eyes, the skin, in melanomas, in the hair, in feathers, and so on, and is derived biochemically from an amino acid called tyrosine. Then there's a second type that we call pheomelanin, that means dusky, and that has proteins with sulfur, like such as dopamine or cis-dopa, and that's found in hair, fur, feathers, and it is a pheochrome or crystalline pheochrome. The Caucasians have that. The first type is in people of African origin or people that are heavily pigmented. In the second type, the pheomelanins, that's found in Caucasian, and that's a different chemistry than the eumelanin. The third type is called allomelanins, and that is brown to black, and it's nitrogen-free. It doesn't have any nitrogens in it, and it is found in the fungus of the soil and in dark soil. And the last one is the neuromelanin, and that's brain melanin. That's the one that I'm very highly interested in, and this is found all in the central nervous system of humans and vertebrates. And there are different substrates that it is associated with, such as the neurotransmitter called dopamine, and tyrosine, and epinephrine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and so forth. Does that answer it?
Yes,
okay.
Definitely did, and really give a good understanding about understanding melanin. So I guess it's safe to say, Dr. Brown, that everyone has some form of melanin.
Yes, that's correct. And it depends on the chemistry that makes it different.
Ah, okay. And that's what makes the difference. Now, I noticed as you were describing melanin, and one of the things that I've seen as well, too, when we begin to look at nature and we begin to look at the plants and we begin to look at ourselves, melanin and the plant and the plants on the planet really have a lot of similarities. You want to talk about that?
Oh, sure. All the plants have some form of pigment, and some of them you can't tell until they have come to the end of their life. Most of them that we know about have chlorophyll in them. So melanin and chlorophyll are very, very much related. Chlorophyll has in its core of the molecule magnesium. If you compare that to hemoglobin has iron in its core molecule, and that if you take blood, for example, and put it on the desk and leave it, say, overnight and it dries, it's going to turn black, which means that in one form it's red and another form it is black. So black material, which we call melanin, is really found in all the plants because most of them have green pigmentation. So maybe at one point we were green people, you know. I mean, it's kind of far-fetched, but the chemistry is very similar. And if you take bacteria, take fungus. If you the bread molds that you see when they ripe, the ripened bread mold is really black, has a black head with spores in it. And if you break that head open containing the spores and it falls down on the bread, it produces more of the like kind. So pigment or black material is found from the stratosphere to the hydrosphere to the ionosphere to the earth and the water in the sea, deep in the water, etc. So it's found everywhere in nature. There's pigment.
Yes, I can definitely see that. Even when we go back to study sort of our ancient ancestors in Kemet, often you would see the god Asar depicted as green, really showing that reflection there as well. Now, the next question I want to ask you, because I know that melanin, and as it functions with that power and really just being active in the brain, when it comes to male and female, and we're talking about us as African, is there a difference in how melanin functions within our two physical bodies?
I don't think you can make that kind of difference. There are some other factors that make us male and female differences. Most of it is biological, and then the other we can't explain. It's endowed by the Creator. But I can tell you that in every nerve in the body, and there are trillions of them, many of them in the brain. If you look in the brain, and we have cut the cadaver brain and sections or slices, And as we go deeper into the brain, we see more black material. That part of the brain that has the highest amount of black material is the midbrain, and we call that area substantia nigra, which means a substantial amount of black material is there. Now, people will argue that that black material in the dead precipitated as waste, and I cannot perceive of that, because I know in the cell, in the cytoplasmic area of the nerve, of every nerve, there are some particles. Those particles contain a black pigment, and that they call them Nissl substance. That, the way I explain it in my experience, is that the black material is there like little batteries, little crystalline batteries, so that when the impulse travels from one nerve to another nerve containing a cell body, which they all do, it's going to re-energize the impulse and send it on its way. That continuously flows back and forth throughout the brain where there are nerves, and I call that consciousness. Once that stops, then there's death. There's no consciousness.
And there's no consciousness. So when it comes to us as women and during the cycles, our menses, and because we have that blood flowing, how does that impact us as women with the blood flowing and melanin, since melanin does travel in every essence of our being?
Mm-hmm. Well, that has to do with the effect of nature on people in general, because I think all people have that same kind of experience, and it means then that that's a measure now of whether or not, you mentioned bleeding, whether or not we're pregnant or not. That's kind of an abnormal process, but it has become a normacy as a measure to determine whether you're pregnant or not. In my own feeling, I think it's sort of on an illogical side to go around bleeding. But as I said, the only way you can know, or one way you can know that you have begun to expect, that is, a new life, is by the stoppage of the blood flow. So as melanated people, there's no difference there between us and other people. But I can tell you there's an old copy, and I don't have it with me, published by the University of Chicago Press, that says that African peoples have thicker blood than other people, which means that the viscosity of the red blood cell flow, or that flow in the bloodstream, is more dense than some other people. Now, that needs to be really researched in modern times to see if that's, if that's still true. So we as a people, as a melanated people, need to do things to continue to rebuild our melanin chemistry and to maintain it. You do it through eating raw foods. Foods have pigments. So you eat raw foods, then the body's cells and tissues and organs then have what it needs to create new melanin, because I think it's a turnover, a continuous kind of process. And I do know, and I've seen this when we open the brain and make the slices, that deep in the brain there are black centers. And some people have predicted that there are at least 12 centers in the brain that is black. Some are more than others. I mentioned in the midbrain, the substantia nigra is that area where it's more dense. And another part called the locus coeruleus also is a part where it's more dense. So if that melanin is destroyed, or if the neurons containing it are destroyed, and the dopamine that they, as a neurotransmitter that they release, if those are out of balance and reduced, then you don't have a system of maintaining skeletal muscle control, and you start to tremble, and we call that Parkinson's. So Parkinson's is either a reduction in the number of neurons in that black area, a reduction in the blackness that's there, and in the reduction of the dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter.
Right. So the goal really is to keep ourselves sort of in that place of optimum health, particularly us as highly melanated people, is to really begin to eat those foods, those raw foods that will help to regenerate melanin, or is it in fact actually creating more melanin?
It's both. Creating more and regenerating, which is really the same thing. So if you have the pigments and you supply the body with the pigments unheated, then the body can do what it has to do with them and maintain that homeostatic balance that nature put it